If you're heading out to take on a variety of situations in any kind of weather with only what you're carrying on your back, you better be carrying stuff that's gonna do its job. Here's what lasted for me, what was popular on the AT this year, and what I'll change for my next hike. Thanks to AeroPress for sponsoring this video. If you stick around, I'll get you 15% off of the original AeroPress and my exclusive code that'll get you 15% off of newly launched AeroPress styles, like Clear and XL. Let's go! I've been back from the AT for a few days. I think it's finally time to unpack my backpack. I guess let's just start from the top. A sit pad, I didn't start the trail with it, but someone found it in a hiker box and I used it the whole rest of the trail. More than just for sitting down, I really like putting stuff on top of it, especially when it was rainy or like I had to get into the bottom to get my sleeping bag or something. I didn't want the stuff I usually keep on top to get leaves and pine needles and ground stuff all over it. It was nice to just have this. I might keep that for my next hike. It might be too much of a luxury. I don't know. This plastic bag held my ID, my money, some souvenirs that I didn't want to get crushed all loose in there. And this plastic bag was for my toothbrush and retainers. If you have retainers, what I would do is have a plastic bag with your phone number on it, because I lost this twice, I think, and you know, those are expensive. All right, now we're getting into my clothes. This Patagonia pullover was really nice, kept me warm. Definitely would carry it again. REI Co-op Puffy, 10 out of 10. I usually wore Smart Wool socks just because that's the brand I happen to have, and they never got any holes in them or anything. Really good. Really recommend them. I also had some Patagonia underwear, the only kind that I've ever worn that actually feel good, I think. Fun fact, I actually started with 2 but lost 1 pair and I just had to make do. That was in the whites that I lost it. Oh well, a lot of hikers go commando. You do what you have to do. And then, of course, my pants, they were ripped before the trail and they got even more ripped along it. So I'll have to get another pair, but these are REI Co-op, the kind that zip into shorts. You can tell I've worn the shorts so much more than worn them as pants. And my Ranger shirt, the shirt that got me my trail name. And by the way, I had both of these for about 700 miles, I think, before the AT, so that's why they're torn up. They're high quality clothes, just like with conditions this harsh, it's hard for clothes to last forever. This is how it ended. How many holes were there in the end? What do you all think I should do with this shirt? This bra was cool because it was reversible. If you get bored of one side, you can wear the other. These 2 things I bought in the summertime and they were just so handy I didn't get rid of them once the weather cooled down again. These are just running shorts with pockets from Walmart. Obviously, like, Walmart clothes aren't really made for rough conditions, but they held up really well. And this tank top, okay, so when you need to wash your clothes, if you wear a bra, you're probably just only carrying one. And at first I was like, oh, I don't really mind. But then after a while I was just like, okay, I need something to wear while I'm washing my clothes. I got this. It was also very handy for swimming, also very handy for going into town, something to sleep in when it was hot. And when it wasn't hot, what I slept in was base layers. This is from Patagonia, very warm, very comfy. My base layer tights are from REI Co-op, very warm. Would recommend. Speaking of clothes, I was expecting to just hike the trail and everyone would be wearing something similar, but really there's just so much variety out there of like athletic stuff and maybe stuff with a funky print and just so many options. As far as rain gear though, my Marmot rain jacket and Outdoor Research rain pants. This pretty good. Like, at the end of the day, some water's gonna get in somehow. This was my first time using rain pants. Sometimes the water did get in through the seams, but other times I was really glad to have them, especially if nothing else, just to use them as a layer to hold in the heat. All right, this bag I got at Trail Days, Hyperlight. They were giving it away for free. Before this, I was just packing all this stuff loose, and I was like, oh, this is how I like Tetris things in, get it in real snug. But it's handier just to have it in a bag. That was one packing strategy I definitely learned. This black bucket hat I'm really emotionally attached to, but I rarely ever wore it. I wore it with a bug net in July, and then after that, I don't think I ever wore it again. Just because when it's hot, a black hat attracts the sun, and when obviously it's not really great for cold weather. The sun wasn't in my eyes that much because of the green tunnel, so I didn't really wear it that much. Although I do love wearing it, I just didn't think to pull it out. This Sea to Summit head net cost $16 at the REI in New York. Lesson learned: if you have a head net, get it to you before you think you'll need it. For me, I needed it in late July. Just that couple weeks in the summer was the only time I used it. Just carrying it with me because I didn't have enough stuff to make it worth sending home. All right, I use this little quick dry towel a lot, especially for drying off my tint of condensation. Oh, I loved this headlamp so much. The brand is Nightcore. So handy. So lightweight. You recharge it so you don't have to worry about getting batteries. Loved it. Had some gloves. The brand is Alpine Meadows. These really came in handy, especially when it was colder. Outdoor research hat, very handy. And that's that stuff. In my electronic bags, I had this little cube with 2 ports, which came really in handy. I had my phone charger and the charger that I could use for this or my power bank. I also had earphones, which I lost several times. It was really handy to have all that stuff together, and I look back now and I'm like, how did all that stuff not break, all that electronics? But somehow. Something I forgot to say when it comes to electronics is that I also carried a little microphone about this big that would plug into my iPhone, and I used that to sort of have better audio quality on the trail. When I was in Vermont, I plugged it in one day and a notification came up there was too much water in that port, and it just never worked the same ever since, and I dropped that microphone in water more than once. So I was lucky it worked as long as it did. I also had a pen and a piece of scrap paper I would keep in that same pouch to write down ideas, voiceovers, to-do lists. Those things plus my iPhone 13 Pro was what I used to make videos. I think for how little they made, or how little they weighed, they made a good enough difference to make it worth carrying. Although for my future hikes, I think I'm going to level up my video gear, and that'll probably be my luxury item in the future. Speaking of luxury items, what were some of the more popular ones that I saw out there? People had inflatable pillows, you know, be a little comfier to sleep. Some people had journals, real paper journals. You could, of course, just type stuff on your phone, but it's kind of nice to have that handwriting. And people would carry cork balls and just exercise stuff to work out those sore muscles. Smoke Master carried physical books with him sometimes because he didn't have a phone for 95% of the trail and he wanted some entertainment. Now Pac-Man carried an AeroPress, which is a small coffee making device, and treated himself and his friends sometimes to nice coffee out on trail. And that's awesome because that is today's sponsor of this video. Let me show you how it works, and I'll also talk you through how to do this process out backpacking. It's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. You take a filter, put it in the filter cup, screw that, it just locks right on to the bottom, and then you set it on a steady mug. On the trail, Pac-Man had a plastic mug that all of this fit inside, made it pretty easy. You grab your coffee and you get a rounded spoonful. Shake it out so that it's more even. Then you get some almost boiling water. If you want to get technical, it's supposed to be 80 degrees Celsius. On the trail, you're probably using a backpacking stove. You fill it up to the number 2. Stir it for 10 seconds. I lost count, to be honest, but that was probably 10. Now you take the plunger and push gently. There we go. And now you have a hot mug of coffee. This is technically an espresso. If you wanted to add more boiling water, that would make it American coffee. If you wanted to add milk, that would make it a latte. You can also do cold brew, so lots of options. The cleanup is super simple. You probably can't see it, but I moved a trash can right here. Don't want you to think I'm putting coffee grounds on the floor. This filter cup unscrews, throw away the filter, and you just push that out. And it's like a nice hockey puck of coffee grounds that just goes into the trash. And this was such a good luxury item because it's such a morale boost. Like the day that I fell in a creek, bent my trekking pole, and then I just happened to come across Pac-Man who made me a cup of coffee, and then Smoke walked up and it was all my friends together drinking coffee. It's just such a pick-me-up. Now I'm usually a person that loves creamer or oat milk in my coffee, but the flavor is so rich with this, you don't really need that stuff. So one less thing to carry. Plus, now that I have one for myself, I'm so excited. It's so small and simple, you can take it anywhere. Like obviously hiking, the beach, sunrise hikes and sunrise on the beach, that would be even more perfect. You know, if you're going traveling and you don't know if there's gonna be a coffee machine there you go, easy to put in a suitcase. I'm looking forward to having it when I go back to living in my van because one cup at a time and it's just so small, easy to pack away. Now, if that seems like something you'd be into, just use the discount code BEER, capital B-E-E-R, at checkout and get 15% off your order. Check it out. See what all the hype is about for yourself. All right, kind of moving on to food stuff. I had an sack, which was pretty handy to have, especially in the beginning. I started using an sack, an odor-proof sack in it, and then once that eventually just got too worn out, I was like, okay, I'll try it without, and no problems. Pretty good. There were some times when this was a little small, but overall, good stuff. Most people had a bare bag, not necessarily made out of this tough material. Especially at the end of the trail, a lot of people didn't store their food properly. For a cook set, I've used the Pinnacle Soloist by, I think it's GSI is the brand. Yep, GSI Outdoors. I'm gonna have to get a new one though because the inside is really scratched up and I'm like, okay, obviously this stuff is coming off and I might be eating it, so hey, I was the only person I knew that didn't lose their spoon for the whole AT. And I think that was because it folds up and it fits in the pot with this little dish, which I really found handy to just have something in addition to your pot used to drink stuff out of it. But obviously if you're going for more minimalism, you wouldn't have to. MSR Pocket Rocket, I think the gates of the screw part in the bottom got kind of stripped at the end. If you know how to avoid that, let me know, because I thought I was being really careful. Of course, a lighter fits in there too. For traveling, I put my water filter in there just to pack it away. I got this new at Shaw's, the rubber gasket that goes between your bottle or whatever, and this came off. So it was leaking the last few days, but I just made do. Obviously not drinking the water that wasn't unfiltered, but just, it made a mess is what I'm saying. So I have to work on that. Also, a note on water bottles. What I had been doing this whole time and continue to do on the AT was just put one of these on one of these and drink like that. But a lot of people had a CNOC bag where you could scoop up like 3 liters of water. They had the attachment, first of all, to attach the bag to this thing. No, wait, the bag attached to this thing already. They had the attachment that hooked onto their water bottle and they just hung it up and gravity made it filter instead of them having to squeeze. That seemed really handy. This way also works just because it's fast. Next time I want to try, it would just be nice to not keep having to go to the stream and back. Just have those 3 liters with you in camp and one less thing to worry about. Second pair of socks. I lost my wool socks before the whites and I just kind of made do with 2 pairs of socks, but I would have liked to have a 3rd pair, especially a warm pair for sleeping. This is my Climate Insulated Static V. I've had this for years now. I've never had a problem with it. Sometimes the valve can be hard, but really good. This trip I started packing it like this because it's a similar size to my tent and that just made it fit easier than if I did it the way it came. It comes in a little bag and it's more shaped like this than like this. No problems, love this. It is a little heavy though, so I don't know if I'm going to keep using it or if it's one of the ounces that I can shave off for next trip. I had a Nemo Disco sleeping bag with a Sea to Summit liner. Pretty good. Kept me warm for sure. Definitely one of the more popular brands that I saw, at least. Really glad to have had it. This is rated to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, but I did have my my liner too. At the bottom of my bag, this is my tent. REI Flash Air. It did start to leak when I was in the whites, but I was so close to the end that I didn't really feel like getting a new tent. Just tried to get to shelters when it was raining. It did get little pinholes in it sometimes, and maybe I just had it staked too tightly and it started to pull apart. Also, if I let anyone borrow this, they would have a hard time setting it up, and I guess it is kind of hard to set up. You have to There's a lot of moving factors and you just gotta jimmy with it for a while. Because of how much condensation was in it too, that didn't seem like a problem for other people. I'm thinking that's probably gonna be the first piece of gear I replace. It was good for its purposes, but I'm just ready to see what else is out there. On trail, what was popular was big Agnes tents I saw a lot of, and the, whatever this material is, the like blue tents that you just put up with 2 trucking poles. I think maybe that's the kind I want to try next, but I don't know. It would also be nice to have a freestanding tent. Towards the end of the trail, I was like having a hard time staking it. Sometimes there are platforms you need to set up on. Just something to think about. And then this is a trash compactor bag. I was worried at first because it's vanilla scented, but no bears ever came and got me. A little bag of toilet paper, trowel. If you're putting it into the ground and you step on it, it will bend. So don't do that. I carried this koozie with me since like Virginia, beginning of Virginia. I found it in a shelter and it was my luxury item. It's my little fun thing to have. This is my first aid kit. I think I'm just gonna start carrying gauze and Leukotape instead of a bunch of different size band-aids. I don't know where I heard that. Smart strategy. I never used my tick key. Definitely used ibuprofen. Definitely used, what's it called? Melatonin. I have these water purification tablets just in case. I had a little bit of duct tape and a little bit of Leukotape on straws just as something round. That was a little too bendy. And so this thing is a ULA circuit made with some waterproof material. On the trail, the rain really didn't get into it that much, especially with my compactor bag. I guess maybe I didn't always need it, but I was like, oh, I also don't want to risk it. Even though it made it harder to pack, I thought it was worth having it in there. I didn't see a whole lot of ULA packs. I think Osprey was the most popular brand, and I also saw a lot of Hyperlight packs too. Good stuff either way. I think I'm gonna keep using this. It wasn't always comfortable, but I think it's probably my best bet. I started the trail with Walmart trekking poles. Smoke found these in a hiker box and then wasn't using them, so we traded once I broke my poles, and they were pretty good. This part came off of this one on Katahdin, but other than that, they held up pretty good. I also forgot to mention shoes because they were away from my pack while I was unpacking, and anyway, I'll tell you right now. I carried Crocs as camp shoes and water crossing shoes is such a hard word to say. I carried Crocs for water crossing shoes and camp shoes. A lot of days when I actually got into camp, it wouldn't even cross my mind to change shoes. And I thought about getting rid of them at one point, but I was so glad to have them when we started to do a whole lot of water crossings. If my trail runners weren't already wet, you know, you could change your shoes, go across the creek, and then put your dry shoes back on. Once I had that bad experience with the water crossing, I was learning a bunch of stuff, and they said it's better to cross in shoes than with your bare feet because you have more grip and you won't stub your toes. So that's another thing why I think it's better than hiking sandals. It's also nice to have my Crocs in town to just give my feet a break from the trail runners. Now, speaking of trail runners, I started in waterproof Solomon's. In the beginning of the trail in March, I thought there might be snow, so that's why I got the waterproof. But then there was no snow, and they also took a really long time to dry when there was rain and stuff. So I was like, okay, I want more breathable, non-waterproof shoes. So I switched that out for a pair of Ultras that my parents had got me. And without meaning to, I ended up wearing those for the rest of the trail. Why? Short answer, because I'm not very smart. Long answer, because I didn't want to replace them till it became apparent that I needed to. In Pennsylvania, because Ultras are very, very thin and it's rocky in Pennsylvania, it really hurt my feet a lot to not have that cushion. So I was thinking about swapping them out, but I was like, oh, I'll just try insoles. Went through a couple pairs of insoles. Nothing really felt better because the insoles would make my feet press up against the top of the shoes. You know, that was just as bad. So after the whole insole debacle, I was like, okay, I'll just keep wearing my Ultras until I find a shoe store where I can try on shoes and physically see what works instead of ordering online. Now, that was the problem because there weren't any outdoor shoe stores for the whole rest of the trail. Now in the South, there were plenty of like outfitters and stuff like that. That's where I kind of messed up my line of thinking. It wasn't until the end of the trail that I actually started getting holes in my shoes. And then I was like, wow, I really should have replaced these. But at that point, I was so close. I was like, was a few more miles. Also the fact that I didn't have a lot of time in town, because any free minute I had, I was either purposely relaxing and just putting off anything else, or I was working on my videos. If you know of anyone else that walked the whole trail in only 2 pairs of shoes, let me know. A weird thing to do. I definitely wouldn't recommend it, but to be honest, I made a mistake. That's how it happened. As far as a GPS, like beacon locator device, I had a bivy stick, which I used in the beginning, but I didn't keep up with doing daily check-ins and setting my location on a daily basis. I would just text people when I had service. And so I ended up not using this the whole time, but I had it with me in my hip belt if worse came to worse for the SOS. It's hard to believe, but that was my life for the past 6.5 months. Those things. If you have any questions, any recommendations, please let me know. Have a good one. Bye.